Imagine, you are standing alone. In front of you is the strongest empire of its time. They have thousands of soldiers, gold and power, and you have nothing. More than 2,000 years ago, Rome was almost invincible. Its armies conquered new lands. But behind the beautiful palaces, there was another side of Rome. Thousands of people lost their freedom and became slaves. One of those people was Spartacus. No one saw him as a legend back then. To Rome, he was just another captive. But Rome made a mistake. They took his freedom, but they couldn't take the most important thing, his will. Spartacus was sent to a place where people trained every day, not for glory, but to survive, to a school of gladiators. Every day, Spartacus grew stronger, but his greatest weapon was not in his hands, it was in his mind. Others were thinking, how can we win the next battle? And Spartacus was thinking, why should we fight at all? And one day, he said to the other gladiators the words that would change history: we can leave. But there was one little problem. Spartacus didn't have an army. He didn't have any weapons, and he had almost no chance. Their escape plan was so desperate that it almost sounds like a made-up story today. They decided to attack without any real weapons. Ordinary people would say it's impossible. But Rome's problem was that one night, about 70 gladiators did something no one expected. They escaped. When the news reached Rome, many just laughed. To them, it was a bunch of runaway slaves. Spartacus understood. If they just ran away, Rome would find them. So he did something else. He started to prepare. Soon others began to come to him. People who also wanted freedom. 10 people became hundreds. Hundreds became thousands. And then Rome realized it was no longer just an escape, it was a rebellion. Rome sent soldiers. They thought, we'll finish this problem quickly. Spartacus did not try to win by force. He understood. To defeat a large army, you have to think differently. The Roman soldiers found Spartacus. They drove his men up the mountain. They thought they had victory in their hands. The Romans decided to just wait. Without food, without an exit, Spartacus had to surrender. But at night, Spartacus looked where no one had even thought to look. Not at the road, but down the cliff. They made ropes out of plants, and they went down a place that Rome didn't even guard. In the morning, the Romans woke up, but there was one problem: their prey had disappeared. And a few minutes later, they realized something else. It was a disaster for Rome. A group of former slaves outwitted a professional army. The news spread quickly. People started saying, wait, did they really defeat Rome? And then the thing Rome feared most happened. Thousands of people began to join Spartacus, an army that started as a small group. Now it was becoming a force that could no longer be ignored. But the bigger his army got, the stronger his enemy became. Because now Rome was taking him seriously. A man once called an ordinary slave. Now he was making the most powerful men in Rome nervous. But now there was a new problem. Spartacus was no longer a small nuisance. For Rome, he had become a real threat. The senators of Rome began to ask one question: how could a former slave defeat our warriors? They did not like the answer, because Spartacus wasn't just strong. He understood people, and he knew how to lead them. His army was unusual. There were no rich soldiers. They were people who had nothing to lose. Roman commanders are used to having enemies afraid of their name, but Spartacus was not. Every new victory made him a legend, and every day more and more people asked, what if Rome can be defeated? But Rome had something Spartacus didn't have: endless resources and a massive army. So Rome sent a man to finish the story. His name was Mark Crassus. Crassus was one of the richest men in Rome. But now he wanted more than just power. He wanted victory. He understood what other commanders ignored. Spartak should not be underestimated. It was no longer a chase. It was a game of two minds. One was defending the empire, the other was seeking freedom. Spartacus understood. He had won many battles, but to defeat the entire Roman Empire, that was a different matter. Meanwhile, Crassus was in no hurry. He wanted to defeat not only the army, he wanted to destroy hope, so that no one would dare to repeat the rebellion. The Romans began to build huge fortifications. Spartacus's camp was running out of food. The people were tired, but no one wanted to be a slave again. Every new day meant a choice: to give up or to keep fighting, even if there was almost no chance. Historians believe that it was then that Spartacus realized that the final battle was inevitable. Before the battle, he walked along the line. He looked into each man's eyes. These men had been by his side since the beginning. According to an ancient legend, a war horse was brought to him. They say Spartacus killed the horse with the words, "If we win, there will be enough horses. If we lose, I won't need it anymore." It wasn't a gesture of desperation, it was a promise. The Roman legions were already visible in the distance. The two armies were slowly approaching each other. Spartacus slowly drew his sword. He didn't promise victory, he didn't speak pretty words, he just went first. And then, the two armies collided. Dust filled the sky, screams mixed with the sound of weapons. The final battle began. Historians still debate how many people died, but one thing is certain. It was one of the most difficult battles of the uprising. Spartacus continued to fight. He tried to break through to Crassus, but a huge army was gradually surrounding him. The rebels were dwindling, and the Romans, they seemed to be getting bigger. After this point, Spartacus's whereabouts are unknown. Historians do not know for certain where his life ended. But Rome still won. Thousands of rebels were captured. However, something happened that Crassus had not expected at all. He won the war, but he lost history. Today, not everyone knows the name of Crassus, but almost everyone has heard the name of Spartacus. He didn't destroy Rome. He didn't become an emperor. But he did something that seemed impossible. He proved that even the most powerful empire can be afraid of one man. That's why they make movies about him. They write books about him. They create games about him. Perhaps true strength has never been about the number of soldiers. It has always been about the courage to take the first step. Spartacus lost the last battle, but he won immortality, and perhaps that's why 2,000 years later we're still telling his story.